Hi, today I'm going to show you guys how to share code between a React and React Native app. We'll start with a React Native app and turn that into a universal app that works on the web with the same code base. We'll be sharing almost all of the code. I've been using this approach in a production app for the last 1 year with a lot of success. We've been able to share more than 90% of the code, including images, translation files, Redux actions, reducers, selectors, helpers, and even business logic. While we've had to spend some time to fix a few things here and there for the web project, and sometimes finding web variants of specific React Native libraries, especially for analytics and other things, it's a lot less work than doing a separate web app. We've been able to save a lot of development hours thanks to this. We'll use a monorepo system for which we'll use yarn-workspaces. I'll leave a link to this in the description below so you can read more about it. Basically, it will be one Git repo where we will have the code. We'll have common code and our web and mobile project, and both of those projects will use the code from our common package. And to share the UI logic, we'll use React Native Web. So what React Native Web allows us to do is use React Native components and APIs on web. A lot of big companies are also using it, including Twitter. As you can see, the compatibility right now is React Native 0.60, which means all the components and APIs in React Native 0.60 are supported. But you can find the whole list down here. So it'll tell you which components and APIs are supported. For this tutorial, I've already created a React Native and Redux app. It's a very simple one-screen app that uses a dummy API, which you can find over here. I'll add all the useful links in the description below. The code for this project can be found on GitHub. I'll also put a link for that in the description. You can find the starting code in the base app branch and the final code in the master branch. Let's go to VS Code and get started. So we'll modify the folder structure of our app to make it work with Yarn workspaces now. Make sure your hidden files are showing so that we can select all the files. I'll unselect Git because I want to preserve the Git history. Let's move it to a folder called mobile. Create a folder called package. This folder structure is required to work with Yarn workspaces. Let's go to terminal and create a React.js web app using create React app. Packages. Let's rename it. Let's create a common directory for all our common code. Go back. Now we'll initialize a yarn repo here and add packages compatibility to it. You have to make sure it's a private package because our yarn workspaces require that. Let's add workspaces capability. We'll go to VS Code. Go inside package.json. We're telling it where to find our packages. Now we'll make the React Native app work from our new folder structure. If you try to run the app right now, you'll get issues. We'll start by going to package.json for the mobile package. What we just did was that we asked yarn-workspaces to now hoist all the packages for React Native project, which means it will install all the React Native dependencies inside its own folder rather than in the root. This is required because React Native doesn't really work well with packages outside its main directory, especially packages that have native dependencies. Let's go back to terminal and do some cleanup. We'll delete the node modules and yarn log files for our web project and our mobile. Let's do yarn install again. We'll have to do pod install all over again as well. Let's close React Native packages. Close the app. Let's go inside the mobile directory that now houses our React Native project. Let's run the app again. So we've got our app running again using the new folder structure, but our files are still being served from the React Native project directory, which is packages/mobile. To share code between web and mobile project, we need to move all the code to the common directory. So we'll do that now. Let's close the packager and the app for now. Let's go inside the common directory. We'll name it universal/common with an @ sign at the start. You can use default settings for the rest. Now we'll move the files to this folder. I'll cut the files and paste them here. Let's go back to VS Code. In the packages.json file in our mobile directory, we'll add our universal/common package as a def dependency. Let's update the imports. Let's go back to terminal and run yarn install once more. Let's try to run the app. You'll see that the app gives us an error. This is because React Native doesn't support loading code from outside its directory. To fix this, we will change the config of the React Native bundler. Let's go back to VS Code. So we just told React Native bundler to look for our common directory and also watch it for any changes. You can find more information about this in the link I will leave in the description below. Let's run the app again. So we've got our app running and it's serving the code from the common directory. Now we'll make the web project work with the code from our common directory as well. Let's go back. I'm gonna add the required packages. These are the packages that we've used in our React Native app that we'll also add to our web app because these are being used in the files in our common directory. I'm gonna use version 7.1.3 of React Redux because the latest version, which is 7.2.0, has some issues and I'm waiting for an update. The reason for adding React Native Web here is that React Native components that we're using in our common directory will basically reference from React Native Web, as React Native Web creates an alias for all those components. Let's make the necessary code changes. Let's go back to VS Code. Let's go to web directory, source. We'll modify the app.js file and copy over the code from our mobile app.js. We could actually share this file as well, but in the long run, it's not recommended because you might find yourself changing the app.js code for your mobile and your web project. We need to modify the index.js file now. So here's these imports. So what React Native Web does is that if you import something from React Native, it adds an alias, so it automatically gets imported from React Native Web. Sorry. So what we just did was we made our React app work with React Native Web. If you look above, you will see that we're importing app registry from React Native. So we're not actually importing it from React Native. React Native Web creates an alias to React Native. So we're actually importing it from React Native Web. If we do yarn start now, it will give us an error because we need to make some changes. Let's try doing that. As you can see, it errors out. Let's go back to VS Code and make the changes. We actually need to add 2 more packages. My bad. We need to make a couple of changes. Let's go back to VS Code. In the web directory, we'll now create a file called config overrides. We'll add this piece of code to it. This piece of code tells webpack bundler how to handle yarn workspaces. Now we'll make some changes to the package.json file. Instead of React scripts here, we'll use React app. Run the app again. As you can see now, our app is working. To mobile view. We are using the same code now. Sometimes you may run into an issue where you may get a hooks related warning. For that, you can check out this page. It usually means that there are 2 versions of the React library in your app. So if you guys run into it, you can go to this page and find support. If you have any questions about this setup or run into any issues, let me know in the comments. Thanks.